Hey, how's it going guys? It's Nate here. And given recent developments, I, like most of you probably watching this video, have had a little bit more free time than I was expecting. And thus, after many hours of brainstorming activities to keep myself busy, I decided to reinstall Skyrim Together, and see just how far the Elder Scrolls V's largest multiplayer mod and community had come since I last jumped in around a year ago. So, for those of you who haven't been following Elder Scrolls modding developments for the past few years, Skyrim Together is a now released and playable, though still in development mod that gives the otherwise lonely world of Skyrim full-fledged multiplayer functionality. We'll get into the specifics of what exactly that means in a bit, because the mod is still very much changing and evolving, but I digress. Even well before its release, back when the authors were working on it behind closed doors, Skyrim Together was a very well-known project in the community, and one people were very excited for. You see, multiplayer mods for this game have existed before, the most notable one probably being Tamriel Online, which popped up in 2015. However, none of these other attempts were really, well, playable, or user-friendly if I'm being honest. All of them required what was often hours upon hours of setup, particularly for users not well-versed in networks, demanded multiple third-party programs and servers, and a whole mess of IP configuration. Then, when you finally got into a game, it wasn't even worth engaging with. Plagued by horrible synchronization issues, lag and crashes, all other multiplayer mods were a total mess. Needless to say, there was never a whole lot of enthusiasm for these admirable, but ultimately problem-plagued creations. Well, in around 2017, that started to change. When Skyrim Together, a mod still not released at this time mind you, began to capture the community's attention. The team behind it produced a few YouTube videos showing off their project, and the community was incredibly impressed. The mod they showed off was not only a playable one, but they promised there wouldn't be any tedious setup on the user's end. No learning what IPs are, downloading 9 programs and whatnot. No, everything would come from a single, easy-to-use launcher. Furthermore, Skyrim Together had an actual large and seemingly competent team, filled with multiple professional coders and developers. Whereas all the other multiplayer mods at this point were usually just the work of 1 or 2, maybe 3 people. And by the time Skyrim Together began to pick up a social media presence, the mod had already been in development for a few years, so everyone knew they were serious. Well, in January of 2019, Skyrim Together finally entered a closed beta phase, where supporters of the project's Patreon page were given access to the beta for a few days. And yes, the mod's beta did technically require you to pay something on Patreon, though you could pay as little as a few cents, but it was something that was very controversial. Anyway, I of course downloaded the mod and made a video showing off the project. My general conclusion was that it was incredibly impressive, having lived up to its promise of being easy to use, and absolutely offered the least buggy multiplayer Skyrim experience to date. But there were still some major issues that could be identified. Quests didn't really work with more than one person, containers were not synchronized, meaning that everyone was seeing different items in containers, there were frequent crashes, and hilarious bugs. My overall judgment was that Skyrim Together was absolutely the closest thing to true multiplayer the Elder Scrolls V had ever seen. And was so user-friendly, I recommended that everyone at least try it out. However, it was still marred by some problems, and it would be a while before it actually felt like true multiplayer, rather than being the closest thing to true multiplayer. Well, here we are. It has now been well over a year and a few months since that January of 2019 beta release. Since then, the mod has seen a full public release and is available to everyone free of charge, and has enjoyed over 400 days of additional development. So, what's changed in all of this time? What is Skyrim Together looking like over a year later? The answer is better. It's looking better. However, we'll see what that means. Getting started with Skyrim Together is actually a lot easier than before, and it already wasn't a very hard task. Simply download the launcher, link in the description, load into a game, and you'll notice a display in the top left-hand corner of your screen, showing off your ping and some other online-related statistics. Press the right control button to reveal a connections menu, and simply dive right into any of the 24/7 public servers. or directly connect to a private server hosted by your friends, if you know the proper IP. Previous versions of Skyrim Together would only allow you to connect to a single, random public server, without getting to choose which one. And if you wanted to play with a specific friend or friends, you would have to add them through this weird account system and have them invite you to whatever public server they were on. It was a mess. Thankfully, that's all much better. The actual process of connecting to servers is, as it always was, super seamless and impressive. Simply press the connect button, and your character will just pop right into the server. No loading screens or anything like that. You retain your character's gear and stats, and are even in the same location. The only thing that may change is the in-game time, for reasons that should be obvious. So, all you really need to do is press the button, and within seconds you can run to find your friends, wherever they may be. If you're anything like me, right now you're probably wondering just how many people can fit into each of these servers. How many people can you be playing Skyrim with at once? Back in 2019, that number was 8. Servers could only support up to 8 players at a single time. And that limitation actually hasn't changed at all. However, stability has radically improved. While early 2019 Skyrim Together technically let you get up to 8 players together, as soon as you had more than 5, you were almost guaranteed to crash after a few minutes. Now, you can really play with 8 players, it seems. It ain't perfect, more players will stress the system noticeably, but at least it holds together. When making this video, I had a lot of conversations with people in Skyrim Together's Discord, asking them what they think some of the biggest improvements are, and this was one of the most cited ones. Furthermore, Skyrim Together's multiplayer comes with no tethering or restrictions on where these 8 players can be and what they can be doing. One of you can be in Windhelm talking to Ulfric Stormcloak, while some other ones are clearing a dungeon on the other side of the map, while another 3 of you are just frolicking around on the streets of Solitude. It's an amazing level of freedom. You may wonder how all these Dovahkiins impact Skyrim's difficulty. I mean, this is a game made for one person. So if you've got 5 guys tackling it together, 5 guys storming dungeons made for a single individual, you can imagine it wouldn't really be that challenging of an experience. What the team did back in 2019 to balance this was simply increase the spawn rates of NPCs to match how many people were near them. Got 2 guys in a dungeon, spawn twice the enemies in that dungeon. Got 4 guys, spawn 4 times the foes. You get the idea. This general mechanic still exists, but the team's made some improvements. Now, once you've gotten more than a few players in a single room, they'll stop spawning so many enemies, and instead just start to make the existing ones stronger. This is a tremendous improvement in relation to lag, and now certain bosses, like the Bleakfall Spider or Alduin, will only spawn in once, no matter what, and their stats will simply scale up depending on how many players they're facing. There's honestly still a lot of room for improvement, and it's not a perfect solution. But this is part of what impresses me the most about Skyrim Together. It doesn't just add multiplayer functionality, but molds the game itself to be better equipped for multiplayer. Now, you can engage in quests with your friends too, which was previously impossible. Quests were formerly totally unplayable with your friends in Skyrim Together. Now, around 50% of the game's missions are playable with your friends. I'll admit, a playability ratio of 50% probably isn't something you were hoping to hear, but it's better than it used to be, and it's likely we'll continue to see this number improve. Regardless, you probably shouldn't dive into this mod expecting to be completing missions, or Talos forbid, entire quest lines with friends. It's getting better. Slowly. Oh my god.
What?
So I came to Helgen, and Alduin's just having a real spasm right now. Like, the Imperial Guards are, they're doing their best, but, oh dear, okay, alright, you know, oh, I think I see you.
I'm curious to see how this looks outside.
Dying in multiplayer Skyrim is now pretty much just like dying in the normal game. Your character will be reset to the last checkpoint with all your gear, and you'll just need to run back to where you were to pick up. In older versions, rather than die, you just go into a kneeling state when out of health and need to be revived by another player, but that mechanic's gone now. Likely because the devs realized a lot of people were never getting revived. Oh, something else I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about right now. Thankfully, mods do work shockingly well with Skyrim Together. Virtually any retexture or ENB you have, you can keep enabled. For something like a new armor mod, so long as your friends have the same mod enabled, it will work perfectly fine. And even if other players don't have the same mod, you can still wear it, those guys just won't see your character's new models. Creations that introduce new lands like Beyond Skyrim Bruma or Falskar work the same way. Just as long as your other friends have it, they can come and join you, and you can all share the experience with no extra setup. Speaking of mods, this is where Skyrim Together starts to get kind of weird, and it's something I didn't touch upon in my January of 2019 review. In-game console commands still work on multiplayer servers, no matter who you are. While playing with other people, you can spawn in other NPCs, enable your own invincibility, fly through the sky, etc. What this means is that you're probably going to want to trust the people you're playing with. And public servers, well, they can get a little bit funky. PvP is also a thing, and you can even loot the remains of players you kill in battle. But keep in mind, thanks to invincibility and console commands, it's kind of irrelevant unless you're with trusted people. In-game puzzles remain unsynchronized, meaning everyone in a group will individually have to solve every dungeon puzzle in order to progress together. And this sort of parlays into what is, in my opinion, the biggest challenge of this mod: general synchronization. It's better than it was in 2019, and certainly a lot better than any mod before it. But when playing, you'll constantly find yourself fighting enemies your friends don't see, watching your mates move in these really abnormal, inhuman ways, seeing different items in chests than what your friends see. This is a series of problems you just kind of learn to overlook. And again, in fairness, I feel like it's not as prevalent as it used to be, but you'll still notice it. Fundamentally, overlooking things is going to be something you need to do frequently. You and your friends need to just promise each other to overlook the fact you all have access to a godly suite of console commands when dungeon crawling and exploring. You need to overlook the fact that you're seeing different things in chests as everyone else. You need to overlook that certain quests don't work, or that public servers are occasionally filled with flying people. But if you can bring yourself to do that, and accept the limitations of a multiplayer mode that should have never existed in the first place, you will really enjoy yourself. For all of its shortcomings, Skyrim Together is something that it's hard not to be amazed by. Clearing out ruins with friends, while we're all laughing and getting scared together, has been a dream of mine since Skyrim released nearly a decade ago. And now, that's an experience that can be had. Leveling up Nathaniel of Skingrad, my newest Dragonborn in the company of others, is amazing. There's still progress being made, there's still new updates at least every month. Parts of the mod have also gone open source, but that's a whole discussion I don't want to have until I've learned more, and there's really nowhere for this project to go but forward. Multiplayer Skyrim is flawed, but it's here. It's fun, it's less buggy than it was a year ago, and it's getting better. Links are down below for installation tutorials, though again it's pretty easy, and there you can also find links to join the project's Discord, which has a very helpful community. A huge thanks to everyone on this credit page, particularly the wonderful individuals who joined me for hours upon hours of recording this experience, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.